Hey, hosers, Bowen here, and we are joined by my co-host Jenny, Shannon Q, Uupsie Bubbles, Kadama, and MathBlade. Uh, and
Hi,
we are going
everybody.
and we are going to have a discussion about trans identities. And what we'll do is we will start by uh, just giving everybody a quick description of how we identify, and we will take it from there. We're going to start with Jenny.
Hi everyone. Yes, sorry about that. I've still got my cold. Yeah, I identify as a binary trans woman, so I'm not gender fluid at all. I just identify as a woman. I actually find it a little hard to understand some of the non-binary identities, which is probably something I share with Shannon.
Could be.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I identified myself as being trans from about the age of 8 and transitioned when I was 27.
All right, and I am May, and I am a non-binary trans woman. I actually identify as being bigender, or always both a man and a woman, or however other ways you want to explain that. I basically, when speaking with a lot of more binary people, there's a lot that doesn't bother me that almost universally bothers other trans women. I've known I was trans since I was about 9, and I've this has always been basically how I am. And yeah, I started transitioning actually just at the start of the new year, January 2nd. So um, yeah, that's where I am. And Oopsie, how about you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Uupsie. I'm a trans male, and I've pretty much known since I was 5 years old that I was male. I went through puberty as a male boy, and even though I was biologically female, there was a lot of confusion there. But I completely identify as male.
Okay, and Math.
So, for me, I am a trans man. Pronouns are he, him. And I grew up in an area that really didn't have a lot of LGBT education, for lack of a better word. And I'm an Aspie, so it kind of threw a lot of social norms out the window. So I knew something was always wrong since a kid, but I didn't start transitioning until about a year ago. And so hence my voice is still a little bit more feminine, but it'll working on it. So that's the 2-second version.
Okay, and Kadama.
Hi, I'm Kadama. I identify as a cis intersex person. I grew up having to be hyper masculine and trying to fit a role that I never was. And it wasn't until I was 17 that I no longer felt the pressure of my culture to be this toxic masculine person and decided just to be the intersex person that I am.
Interesting.
Okay. And I guess we'll include you, Shannon.
Yeah.
I'm Shannon. I'm a boring old cis woman.
Boring and old, strike those and you're good.
I don't
Okay.
have anything interesting to say about myself. I have 172,000 questions though. So
Okay.
I apologize. Please know that the questions that I'm asking are out of a desire to understand better and be better educated, and some will just be pure ignorance due to lack of exposure. But my first question is for Kadima. I don't know if I fully grasp or understand what is meant by intersex.
An intersex person is someone who doesn't have the normal biochemistry of either male or female or the normal anatomy of male or female.
Okay.
We are somewhere in between that at birth.
Okay.
With me, for instance, I may have male phenotypes, but all my secondary characteristics are that of a woman. You know, I have breast, hips, thighs, the whole works.
Okay.
But genotypically, I am male. Now, these different things happen to multiple people. There's different types of intersex. It's a very broad term with differing conditions altogether.
Okay. But ultimately means that you don't specifically align your identity with any of the, archetypal societal categorizations that people stereotypically view as male or female, and follow.
Personally, I don't. Me personally, I don't. A lot of intersex people do. Okay. It's just biologically speaking, I don't fit within the lines between male and female, biologically speaking.
Okay. Interesting. So when it comes to your identity, you also don't feel as though you align, or where do you feel as though you align there, or is it?
I see myself as a true hermaphrodite.
Okay.
As best way I can describe it, which is both male and female.
Okay. So simultaneously.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you for answering my questions. Please let me know if any of them are intrusive. I want to make sure that I'm incredibly.
Make them intrusive.
Okay, you want them? Okay.
I don't want to answer them. We won't answer them, Shannon. So just ask whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I sort of am, except for I was born a normal boy. So that's not on the biological sex part, but on the gender part, that is actually, I would probably say a similar thing using different words. Like I'm very much both, is why I use the term bigender.
Okay.
Bigender works.
Yeah.
Bigender. So very much, when you say very much both, do you mean, behavioral manifestation, aesthetic manifestation, or how you feel about yourself, or a combination?
A combination of all of them. No, I have had to basically suppress my female side for quite a while, just out of a necessity to protect myself. I first tried to transition in 2005, but the gatekeeping was not very good for someone like me, and the it was very, you have to, you are expected to be a very binary trans person. So you would be expected to basically want to be a cis woman, which is not appealing in the slightest. And I run in with a transphobic walk-in clinic doctor because I didn't have a doctor. I was living in Toronto at the time, and alone, and I just didn't have any medical supports for people who knew what they were doing. So I kind of gave up on that for a while, and just busy living my life. I kind of buried it to protect myself from dysphoria. But yeah, people when I was younger would I'd be in a group of girls, and I would be the only boy, and people would actually forget that I was a boy because I would generally be more feminine around them, I guess. Which would make them comfortable, even though I'd never looked it. And then, so yeah, and I, physically, I do not, or as far as my transition goes, I don't want bottom surgery. Testosterone prevents feminization, so I'm on testosterone blockers now, but I actually don't like part of that. So when I'm, done my what we call the second puberty, I'm actually going to go off of testosterone blockers, but that's a few years away.
So you have to, there's a second puberty?
Yeah, basically right now I'm going through a puberty that would be similar to what you would have went through when you were in your teens.
Yeah, the cross-sex hormones, because they start to change the bits of your secondary sexual characteristics that they can, which is an awful lot an awful lot of them. The only thing that isn't up for grabs really is bone structure, and even that's debatable because it's just that bones take a really long time to change.
Right.
Yeah.
So by taking cross-sex hormones, it is very much, especially in the first couple of years, just like going through puberty again. You even revert in some ways to a younger mind, and you can do behaviors at that point that you wouldn't normally do as an adult.
But because of hormonal shifts, potentially?
Because of the hormonal shifts.
Yeah,
it's just like going through puberty.
The way I think in some ways has radically changed in even in like the first 3 months. I went from being a complete extrovert, a complete introvert, like really badly introverted, to being somewhat extroverted. So I did not feel lonely for the last 20 years, and then it's like, oh, I know what loneliness is now.
I'd kind of echo May's thoughts that May's and Jenny's thoughts that it's a second puberty, because that's kind of what I've been going through too, because I still am pretty introverted, but I find myself fighting more for the things I really care about. Whereas before it was kind of more of a shell that kind of kept me in. But having more energy and more gumption with, in essence, a second puberty has kind of helped.
Yeah, there's like the 2 phases to it, because generally speaking, going on hormones originally goes with starting transition. So all of that comes with all the emotional side of coming out, being able to be yourself in public and presenting yourself normal, plus all the hormonal changes on top. It really is a major life-changing thing. So it is very much like having another puberty.
Yeah, that's what everyone has called it, probably for a long. What you transitioned 20 years ago, Jenny? Was it called a second puberty then?
Yeah, that's exactly what we called it. So yeah.
Interesting. I'm taking all of this in. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys answering my questions. So how do you come to the determination? So what you said you knew when you're quite young, but most of you, if I heard correctly, I'm not sure what everybody's age is, transitioned, later on into adulthood. What made you come to that determination, go, okay, yeah, this is what it is, and this is where I align, I fall, I'm binary, I'm non-binary, this is what's the cause of the dissonance or the dysphoria I'm feeling is, and this is how I can solve that and be myself and be contented. That's a lot to answer. I know. I'll just sit here and drink my coffee.
So we need to figure out who's going to answer, because we all have different answers.
Yeah, we probably do. Let's just go on.
Considering I haven't transitioned, I also have a completely different answer as well.
Oh, cool.
Even I have a different answer.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Uupsie?
Okay.
So my situation is kind of unique. I am bisexual, so I can be with men or women. My current partner does not like being with men. So in my current relationship, it just fits better for me to be a woman. However, there are certain things that I cannot go through again, like giving birth. That absolutely blew my dysphoria out of the water to the point I wanted to completely end everything. It's a very hard situation to get through. I have always felt disconnected with my body. I do not like having boobs. I do not like all this stuff that I have to deal with. So it is definitely extremely hard to bear with, but I'm kind of used to it. I can't say I'm comfortable in it. I am more used to it though.
So you haven't gone through an aesthetic physiological transition. That must be really, really hard.
It is definitely really hard.
Especially considering people would innately and automatically misgender you. And frequently. That has to happen to you consistently.
It is something I'm pretty much used to, and also my parents are very anti-LGBTQ. They think that we are demon possessed.
Oh dear Jesus. Ugh.
So I have not only that to deal with, it just there's so much, and I had so much oppression and pressure put on me growing up. So me coming to terms with myself has been more the past few years. I actually thought I was lesbian for the longest time, even though as a child I thought I was a boy. I knew I was a boy, but I didn't know much about transgender until later on.
Okay.
How did you come to realize that you were a boy?
It was just something that was automatically in my mind. That's really hard to explain, because the first time I was in the bathroom, I was 5 years old, and I wanted to get a beard like my dad. And I was even eating his vitamins thinking it would help me grow a beard and become a boy. And my brother and sister decided to play dress up and switch clothes. They got beat up so bad, that's when I kind of realized it wasn't accepted.
Just by
So
just by
just
wearing
by switching clothes.
so just the mere idea that somebody may even temporarily just playing as children have represented a gender that they weren't assigned at birth was enough for them to be severely ridiculed and punished.
That's correct.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That must have been awful, especially if you identify differently than you've been assigned, and you wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with the people that care, that are ostensibly supposed to care about you the most and understand you the most, for fear.
Pretty
Oh,
much. I actually started realizing I was an abomination in my church around when I was 7. And I decided I was tired of everything. And if God wasn't going to accept me, I was just going to kill myself. And what happened was, about within that week, my sister said she wished she would die, and she got beaten up for it. And then my parents brought us to a church sermon that started preaching against how suicide is a sin and how we would go straight to hell. So I went through a lot of mental torture. And at that point, I decided, well, maybe I'll just hold on until I get old enough and I can leave this. And then I went to the doctors about a couple months later, and they told me I was going to die. And I started wishing that I would, so I didn't have to commit the act, really.
have you come out the other end of that? You're in a comfortable and safe place and are supported now?
I can be openly bisexual, but the moment I say I'm transgender, my relationship's over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I am accepted for the other half of me.
I want to say good, but also that's not enough. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's some pretty heavy stuff, but for for me, it was a little bit different, but kind of the same thing. I basically started wanting to be a boy and a girl when I was 9. And I just it was like a I guess like a light switch, right? It just turned on the time I hit puberty. I'm also bi, but that's whatever. So
Go team.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, that's awesome. Like I wasn't even really like dysphoric until I was maybe 11 or 12. I didn't start getting that. Um, but I've only ever like been uncomfortable with certain parts of my body not being female. And this is part of the reason I call myself bigender is like I have dysphoria over not being a woman or a female or however you want to say it, but I don't have any over my male traits, right? Uh, I kind of do, but not really. Like, I can have a full beard and be happy with it, but if I shave it and have a shadow, I absolutely hate it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an unusual relationship. But I'm getting it lasered off, so it's not a problem anymore.
Okay.
So, but and shaving sucks.
Yeah.
And shaving sucks. But like pretty much anything else, like I am happy with the aspects of me that are male, but I'm unhappy that I don't have female aspects. It's this weird both that a lot of people don't ever seem to be in a place like this. Like I've had discussions with Jenny and other binary trans women where they're always like, I could not do that. Right, with a lot of different subjects with a lot of different people. So that's not what made me come to the determination that I'm non-binary, but it's definitely solidified my it's solidified my understanding and belief that I'm radically different from other trans women. Even though I don't call I in real life I call myself just a woman and I use she her pronouns. Just to make things easy on my end. I don't consider he him pronouns to be misgendering me really, but I also want to stick to one set, and I actually I can't have transphobic people using he him pronouns for me uncontested, because then that'll empower them to go other people who are maybe more binary like Jenny, and that'll empower them to use he him pronouns for her, like her. So I just no, I don't use those pronouns, even though I don't really consider it misgendering like other people would do.
Probably an intention thing too. They're intending to attempt to misgender you. The only thing is that you're not upset by their attempt. That doesn't mean that the attempt is like, or you don't consider it misgendering, but they're still trying to offend you actively.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't like people who aren't transphobic using it, because it'll mean that it'll empower transphobic people to do the same.
Right.
And I don't like going by multiple things. Like I was maybe around March, I was like only using my dead name at work, and pretty much everybody else was calling me May, and I never liked my dead name, but whatever. But I would have changed it if I was cis. I hated that name. But it's like the second or third most common name for people in my age group.
Oh, okay.
And my middle name is like the third or fourth.
Right.
So I would have multiple people in school with the same name as. And they're both biblical names. So that's really why I hate them.
Oh, yeah, bounce those.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them out of there.
So like, I would be getting called my dead name only at work, and I'm like, we've got to stop this. I can't go by two names like this in my daily life. I'm not as like at work. I'm not as I don't correct people almost ever on my pronouns. I'm kind of apathetic to it, because I know that like no one is doing it maliciously. I just don't want to have an argument over it. I've actually asked two people of like the 35 at work to use pronouns, I basically went and told my manager. He made me a name tag, and then basically management and other friends at work did all of the legwork for me.
Yeah.
So there's only a couple of people who I've actually even bothered to like fuck you, she, her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
So, if I may,
Yes, please.
I would like to talk about my journey because it seems a little bit different than everybody else's.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I grew up in the South. Won't say what state for right now, but it was very a conservative state, and so I didn't have a lot of the different education opportunities, and I was also pretty much Screech. If anybody's seen Saved by the Bell, that was
Yeah.
pretty much me.
Okay.
So I wasn't very social, didn't have a lot of friends, and so a lot of attempts at socialization didn't quite work. So it was kind of a mix of aspiness and transgender at the same time. So I didn't really follow a lot of different social conventions towards clothing, didn't understand makeup, any of it, and I just thought, oh, I'm just weird. I don't get it. It's fine. Um, but then, like, towards the end of high school into college, I started noticing being attracted to girls. I kind of hit a late mindset for my puberty and even the late body female puberty too. And that's when a lot of stuff started kind of clicking for me. And I tried to hide it and date a guy and almost got married. Bad idea. Don't do that.
I did get married. I can attest to that. I wouldn't do it either.
So always be true to yourself. And that relationship ended up breaking up for a couple of different reasons. Finally came out and found myself, and I was with a lot of girls, and we ended up having a football team down there, a female track football team down there. They are some of the most amazing people that I have ever had the privilege of playing sports with. I am horrible at sports, but they helped me understand, hey, lesbians can wear, clothing that's not typically designed for a lady, and I started doing that, and it kind of all just started falling into place. And then realization after realization, and it's just one domino led to the next. And then I'm like, this is the answer I was finally looking for, and it's kind of a sense of relief. And since then I've been transitioning here in California.
Okay.
So it's kind of more, the more I get exposed and know what the words are, it it helps me to understand and to help. It's been my own journey in a sense because I grew up fundamentalist.
That is actually pretty similar to me right there, that statement.
That it was incremental, that you were getting slowly exposed to not having to, conform to a gender that you were assigned or fit a specific societal standard that's affiliated with one gender or another. And as you're exposed to these incremental changes or opportunities to represent yourself more in the line of your personality, you kind of come to almost like an epiphany of realization that, oh, okay, this is who I am. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I can kind of say that was it for me, because understanding the terms was a really big thing for me, because I did not have much exposure to anything growing up.
Right.
As much of this journey of self-discovery, that's exactly kind of what I went through.
Okay.
Up until I was about 10 or 11 years old, I was a boy. My parents told me I was a boy, and that's just the way it was. And then puberty hit, and my body decided that, no, you're not a boy. And so I started to go through a woman's puberty. So the first thing I did was pad my crotch and hide my chest and try to act more manly than everybody else. And it wasn't until that toxicity led me to get into many fights, and I got put into juvie and later a delinquent school, that I realized that how I'm behaving is not who I really am, that this toxicity is harming me greatly. So I stopped doing it. I had to look myself in the mirror and decide, this is who I am, and I don't need to hide it. I don't need to change it, and I can be myself. So it really was a journey of discovery of myself at the time.
Wow. So you went through sort of almost an overcompensation phase because you were told that you needed to be one way, your body itself manifested a different way.
Yeah, I had to be more manly than the other men around me. So I had to be extremely toxic, get into so many fights, and just hide who I really was, just to try to be more manly than them. And it got me in juvie and later a delinquent school.
That's also disconcerting because it also gives us a really horrible archetype of what it is to be manly too. It tells you a lot of things about what society tells us about, men and women and
yeah, I had to be a straight gangster. It was really bad for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until after I was halfway through my delinquent school and I looked at myself and went, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Right. Well, good for you for coming to that realization.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It still took me another 2 years before I was willing to actually express any of my femininity. So, but it was definitely the starting point.
And once you started to be able to accept that, did you become more comfortable and more yourself and more emotionally, mentally healthy?
I would say so, yes.
Oh, good.
I had a serious anger problem before then, and I've kind of lost a lot of that anger issues.
Wonderful. Probably because there's so much of you that you're not suppressing and you don't feel the need to pretend to be something that you are. That must acting as though you're somebody that you aren't constantly has to be exhausting.
Even doing it to myself, I was acting something I wasn't to myself.
Right.
And it was causing a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's a really strong point.
Yeah.
The constant internal battle that you would have with yourself, trying to convince yourself you're something that you aren't, so that you can manifest it or attempt to manifest it honestly day to day. That would be incredibly trying. Exhausting.
I kind of did that, except for I didn't really try to overcompensate or anything.
Yeah.
I just pretty much shut half of myself down. And it really hurt me it just kind of made me apathetic to the world for a long time. But Jenny, you haven't said much.
No, I haven't yet. Well, I realized that I wasn't a boy probably. I say 8 because I don't remember much from before then. But I basically don't remember a time that I didn't think I was a girl.
Yeah.
So for me, it was there were other factors into why I didn't transition younger. Part of that was I was brought up in a religious family, not fundamentalist, but just having that overriding arch of religion behind you makes a lot of these things really hard to even talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but by the time I was about 8 or 9, I'd already collected a whole heap of information on being trans. So I even knew what the word was for who I was, but I didn't know how to explain it to anybody. I was too young. I didn't really. I understood me, but I didn't know how to explain that to anybody else. But even from that age, I was cross-dressing. Not that I consider it cross-dressing now, but I was correct dressing because it was one of the few ways I could be myself. So any opportunity I had where I was the only person home alone, I was able to be me.
Oh.
And by the time I was 11, my brother caught me. And his reaction was, "You little faggot, what the fuck are you doing?"
Oh my God.
And that made me go even more closeted. I still cross-dressed whenever I could, but I was way more careful.
Every stream I'm on should be titled, "When is Shannon gonna cry?"
Yeah, I mean, my brother is awesome. I love him to bits. But he absolutely terrified the hell out of me. He actually apologized for it years later, and he said, "I really shouldn't have done that. I should have been totally supportive of you." But I mean, he's 9 years older than me, so at the time he was in high school. I mean, how was he going to respond? So he freaked out. My mum found my stash of clothes when I was 12. So we kind of had a conversation, except that even though I was trying to, her initial thing was, "Are you gay?" And then, "You must be gay." At which I said, "No, I'm not," because I was being honest. I mean, I identify as being bisexual, but I knew I wasn't gay.
Right.
And trying to explain that to her was next to impossible. And so the conversation just sort of disappeared. But from the youngest age, I can remember all I ever wanted to be was a mum.
Right.
That was I wanted to be a mum. Being a parent was the most important thing to me. So when I was 21, I got married for all the wrong reasons. Having said that, me and her are still really good friends.
Right.
So that's a good thing. And amazingly, I ended up with 2 beautiful daughters. So, so people say to me, "Oh, if you could go back and change it and transition younger, would you?" Well, no, because there's 2 really good reasons why I would not change anything about my life, because they are the most important things to me, my girls. So I ended up being a mum. The youngest one actually lives with me, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
But I would say younger. She's 21 now, so
That's young.
Yeah.
I don't think you are, but you are.
But, so yeah, I didn't transition to later because of the things that happened in my life leading up to that, and I don't regret any of those things. Yeah, it might have been nicer if I could have transitioned younger, but it didn't work out that way, and that's fine. But yeah, my thing is basically, for as long as I've known who I was, and I actually collected a great big thick folder on all the information I could. So I had all this information. I knew what was going on when because I realized who I was before puberty.
Wow.
And then I knew what puberty was going to do to me, and it terrified the hell out of me. I actually tried to castrate myself.
Oh my God. No, Jenny.
Yeah. Pain put me off that, but I attempted it.
Oh my gosh.
Because I didn't want to go through it. I knew what was going to happen, and it absolutely terrified me. I was non-sexual up until I got married. I'd never had sex. As I said to May the other day, I'd only ever masturbated once, and that was because everybody I knew said, "You should masturbate. It's really good." And it freaked me the fuck out.
Really?
My dysphoria against my body was so bad, I hated even touching that part of me.
Oh wow.
So yeah, which is pretty intense dysphoria. So how the hell did I manage to have kids? Well, it was the desire to have kids. It really was, which is a horrible thing to say. I mean, we were really good friends, and I'd supported her through a relationship breakup.
Yeah.
And we just got close as friends. And being bi, I thought, oh, this could work. And I sort of came out to her before we got too close together, but I didn't do it very well because I was still sort of semi-hiding.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, there are things I maybe should have done differently, but I don't regret any of it, because who regrets your kids? You can't regret your kids. They're awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
You are right.
And I'm so glad I have them. So
on the whole regret thing, like, this is one thing where I'm so different from a lot of other trans people. Like, I went through puberty, and like, my boy puberty was right for me, right? Like, it didn't cause any problems for me at all. And then my only regret is not pushing to be able to transition back when I first tried, which would have been like right not long after my first puberty ended. So like, that would have been, now in my mind, that would have been the best time for me to transition, because I would have gotten maybe better results from transitioning, and I would have also like transitioned a little bit younger. But there's no way I would have ever been happy like transitioning during or before puberty. That would just be bad for me.
You would have probably had more problems transitioning them because they would have insisted you to fully transition.
Yeah, that's
Because
no.
that's how the gatekeeping used to be. It used to be, well, you have to be binary. You have to be one or the other.
Yeah, no. In 2005, that's what was expected. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that was
mean
what
that I
was
would have.
expected. Which is fine for me because that suited me. But
It wouldn't have been like I wouldn't have done it,
Yeah.
right? And they wouldn't have forced me into doing it. I wouldn't have been able until recently. I wouldn't have been able to change my like gender marker. Um, it took a human rights complaint to force Ontario to do that, but like they wouldn't have. I've heard some terrible stories where we might get into this one a little bit later from some people in the States who were basically told that she didn't want GRS or gender reassignment surgery, and she was basically coerced into doing it, or they would take her off estrogen, and this person actually very much regrets doing it. Um,
Oh my
and I
God.
feel that would be where
yeah, we're
I
going to
am.
have her on the show, Shannon.
Yeah,
Hopefully in a few weeks' time.
yeah,
So doctors have set out essentially like a medical path.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what they used to do. It's changed a lot now. It's not as
yeah.
forceful now, but it used to be if you're trans, this is the only way you can be trans, and you had to follow this path.
That's
Which is
awesome.
all right for somebody like me who did fit the path.
Yeah.
But
Yes
if
and no.
someone like me,
Yeah, I would.
What did you say,
I'm
Matt?
sorry, go ahead. For me, my transition path was actually a little bit different because when I first actually wanted to go see a doctor and find because I switched insurance with my job, and so I wanted to go find a doctor, and so I went to go see a primary doctor, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine. I'll treat you everything but that trans stuff." So they actually had a devoted doctor in that health system that helps with LGBT stuff. And so I ended up on a 3-month waiting list to get a GP, a general doctor.
Yeah,
And that's in California. I'd hate to imagine what it is like in the South.
actually, I know quite a few people whose doctors won't even give them HRT, including a good friend of mine, and like this is like near Toronto and Ontario, right?
Why?
And we have a trans care clinic which is supposed to train people how to do this, but people are just transferring all their trans patients, saying no, they're going to do this now. That's what they're here for, and it's really not. I was fortunate in that the organization, I have a nurse practitioner, not a doctor, but she do everything a GP can. But she actually works in the trans care clinic here, so and I've been with her for like 5 years. So she already knew what was going on, but other people, and for this specific person, it was that her doctor is old, about to retire, and just doesn't want to administer hormones, which he's trained for, just not for this purpose. And it's like if like a nurse practitioner can do it, then like any doctor can. But
So why would they refuse somebody that? Like,
Here-
what
well,
reason would you give?
well, here in California, we have a legal and insurance system in which we have specialized doctors for gender and sex.
Yeah.
That is what we do here in California. So if you go to your general doctor, they got to transfer you over to a specialized doctor.
Yes and no. I'm in California too, but they actually have GPs that are starting to do it now, which is kind of weird.
I heard they lessened the rulings on the insurance, but that's nice, I guess.
But yeah, I actually it's kind of weird because I actually have to drive 20 minutes like 20-30 minutes north of my work, and I live about an hour south, so it's literally an hour if I'm home to get to my doctor if traffic's bad, which is really weird because it's a big huge Sacramento area. Well, now I just said the city I live in, but I actually have to go north up into up outside of even the suburbs just to get the GP, which is weird. Like
I
that's
transitioned in a country town, and when I started my drive to see my endocrinologist and my psychiatrist, sorry, was a 5-hour drive in one direction.
Oh.
Yeah,
Um.
and I used to have to do that once a fortnight when I first started.
Oh.
So it was, it wasn't pleasant doing
The,
that. But it's just because the town I was in didn't have that sport. But after I think it was about the first 6 months, it was fine. I just basically let my GP do everything, and I just.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
my psych. I went to my first appointment, and he goes, "Yeah, you realize it's probably going to take a good 12 months for me to figure out where you're at and get you through all the gatekeeping." And at the end of the first session, he goes, "Well, you know what you want, and you're definitely who you say you are. So here's a bit of paper."
yeah.
One session.
Wow.
By the time I'd started transitioning, I already knew who I was. I'd known it for years, and I knew where it was, where I was going, and exactly where I wanted to go. So basically, I was telling people what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You were like,
So I was pretty forceful about it. I said, "Look, this is what's going to happen, and if you're not going to help me, I'm going to do it anyway." So
that's right. I filled this out. Just sign it.
Yeah.
pretty much do what I want.
And
So yeah, so my point from when I think there was 2 months from when I came out, first saw my GP, who was actually a personal friend, to when I ended up on hormones, which at the time it used to be a 12-month wait.
Oh wow.
yeah.
What do you have to do
Yeah, there
to?
used to be a requirement that you had to live in your identified gender for 12 months without any hormones, without any help at all, just to prove that this is what you wanted to do.
So you had to like prove your dedication to it, essentially.
Yes, that's what
Okay,
it was.
okay.
You had to prove your dedication to it.
That's
Like,
one thing that
in the hardest possible way, in the most for a lot of people, pre-hormones, it's really hard to pass.
Yeah.
And it made their dysphoria worse. So this is one of the reasons why suicide rates were a lot higher than what they are now, because the medical, and even still now in some places, the way the medical fraternity treat us, some of them, is kind of disgusting. So yeah, I mean, it's no lie when you're talking about the LGBT plus group, that trans people are probably the most marginalized element of that.
I have a question. So sorry.
Yeah, go Shan.
If somebody said to me, prove to me that you've been living as a woman, like what, or prove to me that you've been living as a man, I don't even understand how you would be able to.
Basically, they expected if you're a male to female,
Yeah.
You had to become the girliest girl you could possibly be to prove that you were going. Yeah.
But what if you're not a girly girl? I wouldn't
exactly.
be able to transition. I play a bunch of sports. I swear my face off. I smoke. I drink. I'm in. Like I wear dirty t-shirts and ball shorts all the time.
This was still the case when I started transitioning. It was a requirement for me. And I'm not an overtly girly girl. Right. I mean, I can be quite girly, but I'm not overtly girly girl, but I had to put on that facade every time I went and saw the gatekeepers.
So you had to be somebody that's not yourself.
Yeah.
In order to prove to somebody else that you deserved to get the medication and treatment that you needed to be yourself.
Yep, and we still had that going in 2005.
That's bananas.
And actually, for a long time, anyone in Ontario, regardless of where you are in Ontario, got referred to CAMH in Toronto, which would really suck if you lived in Timmins or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what Economy Breakfast is saying in chat at the moment, the changes that Trump's putting through in the US at the moment means that now doctors can outright refuse treatment for trans people.
But then they could,
even if it's not something that's related to being trans.
We're not treating you. Any doctor can do that.
This one doesn't have much
support you.
Go ahead.
But it's still not right that that there should be allowed oppression in this way.
Yep, actually, recently Ontario just did the exact opposite, which that's kind of the Canadian thing to do. But they said that
This is why I say Canada doesn't exist.
they
So,
basically
like-
said they basically said that like it wasn't for being trans, it was for abortion. But they basically said that no, if you're a Christian and you don't think that people should have abortions, tough luck. You're giving one. So,
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
makes
doctors
sense.
can't refuse medical treatment
Yeah.
for religious reasons.
And when we're talking about governments trying to shut down Planned Parenthood, something May said to me the other day that I didn't realize is that Planned Parenthood actually offers trans services in the US.
Mhm.
Yep.
So they're one of the organizations that helps trans people get on hormones and transition.
Yeah.
And with the right wings trying to shut it down, they're also shutting down facilities for trans people.
Yeah, they also do mammograms and pap smears and general
I'm
women's
gonna
health.
go and have one of them. Don't talk to me about mammograms.
don't get me started on Trump shutdowns and Trump, because like I was actually trying to get my driver's license and such, and because we didn't know how long that government shutdown was going to last, Shannon, I don't know if you're aware, but Trump decides to throw hissy fits and sometimes shuts down the government.
That's great. You can do that? Okay. Fair enough.
Well, Trump and some other people, but yeah. Anyway, so I was actually trying to rush through my government ID and pretty much everything else to get it to be the proper gender,
Yeah.
because I needed to have an ID to do certain things.
Yeah.
So I'm actually stuck in limbo right now. My Texas birth certificate says I'm female.
Mhm.
And because of Texas rules, I don't know if I can actually get it changed, even though I have a California order.
yeah.
So
Oh.
I am both female and male in the eyes of the United States. My federal social security number is male.
But your birth certificate's female and you can't get it changed because Texas.
Yeah,
Isn't it
Texas
interesting?
requires something that California may or may not do. They require a certain document. It's bullshit. Excuse my
Here's an
French.
interesting thing with birth certificate changes in Australia.
Actually,
In my state, when you change when a trans person changes their ID on their birth certificate, the original data is only accessible via court order, even to the trans person. Yeah.
You can't get your own information?
Yeah.
Um,
So I cannot now prove who I was before. Yeah. And this actually became a problem for me because when my daughter went to get not her driver's license, but an adult ID,
Yeah.
which is used for things like TAFE and stuff like that over here,
Yeah.
college and that. She needed to get this, and it required her birth certificate, and I couldn't find her birth certificate. So I went to the registry to GUTS for us, and they go, okay, you're just bringing your birth certificate and you're her parent, you can sign it up and everything. So I brought in my birth certificate, but of course that's different to the name that appears on her birth certificate in the records. And even though I'm in the place that has these original records,
Yeah.
I could not prove that I was her parent. Yeah. I was in tears in the place. The managing guy, the head honcho guy came out and he goes, look, we're not supposed to do this, but I'm going to go and figure it out and see if you can do this. And he did. But I was absolutely beside myself. I was a wreck and she was a wreck because what was I meant to do?
Right.
yeah, that's crazy. Another story about changing ID is from a friend of mine. He was born, I think, in New Brunswick, but came over to Ontario. But she has to have lived in New Brunswick for a certain amount of time to be able to change her ID. And she came over like when she was young to Ontario. So
Right.
she's having like a massively hard time getting her birth certificate changed. And she can't get her so she can't like change some of her documents through that system. Our system in Ontario is kind of easy, but like some of the other provinces are still kind of bullshit.
Oh, wow. I ordered mine online when I needed to get a passport. I just went, here's my $60, bring it to my mailbox.
Yeah, I need to do that. It's going to cost me $250 because I lost my birth certificate, so it's going to cost me $95 to do it. And then I'm going to have to spend another $95 to get it replaced a second time with the new information on it. And it's going to cost me like $35 to change the gender, and it's going to cost me like another $35 to change the name or some bullshit like that.
Oh yeah, and then your passport and your driver's license and your
I don't have any of that. I just have a health card. Other than that, I just have a health card.
Most of those documents are no different than like if you get married and you change your name. But things like birth certificates and passports are an absolute pain.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you could just get married and change.
Well, I did that too. Because I've been married twice. I've been married once in each gender. How's that?
Oh wow.
Awesome.
I just did it the once. I think I'm good now. Legally, I'm still married, actually.
Yeah, same here. I don't even know.
I can relate to that. My first marriage was a wreck, and I still haven't even gotten a divorce for it, even though I haven't been in that relationship in over 3 years.
Yeah, same with me.
I kept my ex-husband's surname because when we split up, he insisted I changed it. So I said no.
And you said, "Fuck you."
That's
I
great.
can't see myself getting
Go
married unless the law changes. I'm in a romantic communist state where I have a boyfriend and girlfriend who are all partners with each other.
Oh, okay.
They're our boyfriend and our girlfriend.
So
We're
you're
romantic
polyamorous.
communist, and so I don't see myself getting married at all.
So
I don't think the marriage system can handle that kind of marriage right now.
yeah, I don't think
I
the
did
marriage
that
system
once.
really handles poly all that well.
No.
Doesn't at all. It doesn't allow for it. Period. Full stop.
I
don't
did
think.
that
Yeah.
when I was like
handle being in a poly. I'd get
17.
jealous.
That was great. And then one of them got sent like out west, I think Alberta or something like that in itself. And then I moved back, and then I moved to another town. Yeah.
Okay.
But for the 6 months it lasted, that was great. Yeah.
I did one. As much as I can handle.
Well, everyone liked each other, and we just kind of decided to roll with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Romantic communism is the way to go.
As long as everybody's happy consenting adults, whatever you want.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I'm not knocking it. I just don't know if I don't know.
It would take a very special.
I poly, but I've had a threesome. Does that count?
Yeah, well, who hasn't?
That would
I
take.
haven't.
It would take a.
Like
It
I
would take a
would,
very special relationship to actually make that work properly, without things falling apart, I think.
Who said
Yeah.
anything about a relationship? I thought we were
Yeah, I
talking.
was just talking about it.
Okay.
I don't think I could handle 2 people at
Well,
once. That's just
that-
not how I roll.
That
I
was
think relationship wise, I don't think I could handle 2 people at the same time. But if it's just fun and everybody understands it's just fun,
Yeah.
I would. Except for the relationship I'm in right now, I feel pretty exclusive.
Yeah.
But if it's more, you have fun, I have fun, that's a thing.
well. That was 2, including me. That was 2 bisexual guys, and so that was.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have one bisexual girl. I'm by myself. My boyfriend's straight, he says.
He says.
Yeah, I'm pretty straight. I don't consider myself entirely straight, but I like women a lot more than I like dudes.
Right.
I, except for instead of saying that I'm pan, like I would describe my sexuality very, very similar to Jimmy's, where I'm bisexual, but gyneromantic. So I would just I use a slightly different label, but I pretty much mean the same thing. So
Yeah, I'm functionally pan. I just prefer bisexual, just because of growing up, you know.
yeah, well, I've called myself bisexual since I was like 9, so I'm not going to be coerced into changing it. Care more about the etymology of a word than what I mean by when I say it.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of in the same boat because I say I'm straight, but at the same time, like I will date straight women and I will date cis women and trans women, but straight really doesn't encompass the trans part of it. But at the same time, everybody's women, so I'm kind of like
Yeah,
I'm straight because there's not
I
really a
pretty much
pan for that.
the reason I identify as bisexual is actually for the longest time I was only interested in women, and it wasn't until I was 17 I considered men, and that's more demisexual than actual bisexual, I guess. So I have a little bit of interest in men, but the men's body does not actually turn me on. Uh, I know that's really weird. I say bisexual, but it's more complicated than that.
it's
Oh,
always more complicated.
No
Jinx.
one fits neatly into any box.
No, no.
No, but
Uh,
people sure do like to try to cram us into those goddamn
Oh,
boxes,
they
don't
yeah.
they?
I like to say
Then they
that.
tell you that you're not allowed to be in the box that you decided to be in. That's not your box. Your box needs to be a different box.
Yeah, really. That's
I
how my
like
Twitter
the
name
wrong
got
thing
made.
on your
Loving
box.
people.
To write that in your box.
My philosophy or whatever where labels are concerned, just a way to convey basic information to other people possible.
Yeah.
So like I'm very much not romantically attracted to men, and I'm very much both romantically and sexually attracted to women, even if I'm sexually attracted to men too. So I have a tendency to call myself a lesbian, let men leave me alone, because I'm looking for a relationship, not just a one night stand or something like that. And I
Right.
wouldn't get into a relationship. Well, I would say I'm demi romantic with men, right? So it would take me a long time to get into a man,
Yeah.
like romantically.
I
Depends
think
how
I'm
much
the
lube
exact
you use.
opposite of you.
I can do so many pretty quickly.
Like I couldn't picture myself in like a long-term, lifelong committed relationship with a woman, but I could consider everything else.
Yeah, I feel the same as you, Shannon.
Yeah,
I
pretty
couldn't put
much.
myself in a long-term relationship with another woman. It's even though I was married to one,
Yeah.
because I know how that was, and it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, but as far as being, having fun with another woman, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
like when I picture myself like in the long run in a relationship, I picture myself with a man. But if I'm picturing myself in any other situation, mentally I actually go to women frequently first,
Okay.
which is I don't know what that means, but I don't know what any of it means, but yeah, that's what it like mentally that's an image that would be in my head if I had some reason to try to put an image like that in my head, which you do from time to time.
Well, like from my
Frequently.
experience growing up, like I said, I grew up religious. My family wasn't, but I kind of got converted. Long story short,
Mhm.
I ended up trying to want to be married to kind of fulfill my womanly duties. That's an air quote. You guys can't see my hands.
Yeah. I could feel them.
So I tried conforming to that, but at the same time, I kept arguing with myself, and it was like because I kept seeing wedding scenes, but at the other side of the aisle was a woman because I was
Right.
actually dreaming that. And it kind of created this weird schism, and a lot of what you're saying kind of reminds me of that schism I had, where I was like, yeah, because myself would be kind of almost invisible, but there would always be a woman on the other side. I'm like, okay, do I dye my hair? What the hell's going on? Because I was blonde at that point, and anyway, long story short, I can kind of see some of that schism, and it's completely normal, whatever your sexuality is, and those things happen. It's just explore and love and embrace.
Yep.
Kind of one of
Yeah,
my mantras.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
especially if you
remember
want to.
Whenever I got married, it was probably the most heartbreaking experience. And the thing with the dreams, I've always dreamt I was a male on the other end of the relationships and stuff like that. So that has always been happening. Well, I kind of got married because I had no way out of my religion, no way out of my family. And hey, please don't do that. Oh, hold on.
It's okay.
But I had no way out of my religion or my family, and he was the first one to seemingly accept me for who I was, and that religion, I just did not fit into that sphere anymore. But he turned out to be super religious and even worse than my family.
Oh wow, I'm sorry.
And when I got married and I was on my way to my honeymoon, we got in the vehicle, and every woman that hugged me, I just felt like I needed to kiss a woman at least once in my life, and I held that in. And I knew that the moment I got married, that was it for me. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a weird story, but it exists.
Thank you for
Not
sharing.
picky at all.
Yeah.
I'm just not picky at all. The only thing I can't stand is someone who's more dominant than me.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
right.
why my pronouns are mistress, mister. No,
I
mistress.
like Kadima. I'm afraid that I have to go. I'm so sorry. I could talk about this with you. Can I come back again sometime and ask more annoying questions?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'd be up for it.
Yeah, we
Okay,
love you.
yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm terribly sorry that I have to go now, that I only had an hour.
Right.
And I really appreciate you guys tolerating my inquisitive nature and inviting me on and allowing me to learn more about you guys in general and get to know you guys a bit better. So thank you for sharing with me. It really means a lot to me. It really does. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is what we wanted.
Thank
Yeah,
You're
you.
very welcome.
My big thing's education, so yeah,
Yep.
I'm glad you asked.
It means a lot. 'Cause I think a lot of people are afraid to be inquisitive because they're afraid if they are inquisitive, they're going to come off as ignorant and be accused of being ignorant on purpose. And you can't stop being ignorant if you aren't allowed to explore the subjects that you're ignorant.
Actually, there is a thing where there's a lot of trans people who don't like, even the slightest bit intrusive questions.
Right.
But a lot of the people in my support group don't like that because they want to have these conversations with their cis friends. And this was brought up specifically as a discussion topic, where it's like, I want to talk about this, but my friends are too afraid to ask because they think I'll be offended or something.
Right.
I think as a culture, we need to redefine what ignorance is and what stupid is, because ignorance just means a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stupid means you're intentionally ignorant.
Yeah.
You're
You're
stupid.
You're trying to keep yourself ignorant.
Yes. And that's
I'm
when we have
not
problems.
smart.
But ignorance is fine. Like, unintentionally offensive is fine. I can tell you if it was offensive.
Right.
But if you're being a jackass, you're being a jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That transcends intellect and exposure as well.
Exactly.
Some
So-
people are fuckbags, so I'm allowed to swear.
Absolutely. They're like a
Okay,
fucking
Shannon,
sailor.
I'm gonna
If
go
you and
before
Kyle
they take your
want to
screen
drag
down
any
because I have
of
a potty
us
mouth.
over there, you're
Sorry,
more than
what, Jenny?
I said if you and Kyle want to drag any of us over there, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I'll ask him as I go in.
Okay.
Yep, same here.
Yeah,
I
we
have
can
to
continue
go
this over on
stand
non-sec
outside
if
for
you
2
want.
seconds
Yeah,
because
you can continue this over on non-sec if you wanted to.
cool.
Yep. Just message me on Twitter if you want me to hop over.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
I may join. Depends on how things go with my child because she's getting cranky.
Yeah.
That's more
I-
important.
I'm probably not going to join because Kyle still wants me to talk about 2 things: Pluto and the and what happened to my gay bashing a while back. So I'm going to avoid that just for that reason.
Oh, fair enough. I think we might be doing a call-in show, and I think so I'm not sure, but I will let him know. And if not, then I'd like to maybe have you guys on my channel in whatever conglomeration at some point in time to
Yeah.
to continue.
May and I have figured out how to do the dual streaming now too.
Perfect. Then we'll just do that.
So if we want to dual stream it sometime, I'm more than happy to do that. And if you want to have any of us on to just discuss anything,
Yeah.
one-on-one or with a group, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And if you
just
want to
message
have
me
me
on
on to talk
Twitter.
intersex issues, I'm open for that as well.
Yeah.
There's
Maybe
a
I could
lot
have
of
a series
issues
of
that we're
one-on-one
going.
conversation. I'm monopolizing your stream by brainstorming what I'm going to do on my. Okay, I'm going to go now.
No, that's great. That's
Thanks,
great.
Shannon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
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 Yeah, like one of the things I'm trying to do, I won't really say I'm an educator, but I'm trying to, and I'm kind of like I don't know, like very outgoing with being trans.
The children.
Well,
So I don't see.
Well, just because of how I've lived my life and I've seen how much ignorance there is, and I kind of want to help spread that information to kind of help foster some of these conversations, because some of the hatred and some of the things we see may be just people who don't have information. Because
Yep.
if the only source you're hearing is that trans people are evil, you're gonna be brainwashed and eventually thinking trans people are evil.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, an interesting story. So I didn't like I went closeted more to myself than to the world, and even though I'm also bi, I basically did not have anything to do with the LGBT community for most of my life. So I didn't know a lot of the new terms coming out, and I forget when the show was. It was over a year ago, but not by much. Maybe like May area. Nonsec did a show with Jimmy, Luxander, who are both awesome, Kyle, Steve, and EJ. Who I'm not very fond of them, but like it was on like trans and non-binary people, and that's what finally broke down my walls. To come out and transition, but it's what pushed me to that. But the thing is that I started reading up on non-binary identities for the sole reason of disproving them. and then I read one, and I'm like, oh no, wait, that's me. Okay, revise some things here.
Yeah. That is a lot to where I'm at. I want to destroy this non-binary narrative, this binary narrative that is current. I think it does a disservice because this is a gender and sexuality are complex, factorial issues. So you can't. The idea that it's somehow binary is just so factually wrong that it needs to be destroyed. And when people actually start researching on this issue, they almost always switch sides. They go, yeah, because the evidence is so readily there and it's so available. But the thing is, people still want to hold these binary notions, which just aren't true.
Well, like, again, I describe all this stuff as just quick generalizations, trying to communicate as much information about ourselves to other people as in as few words and as easily as possible, right?
And that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
complex.
And
But
considering you don't want to get on a full-blown discussion about every aspect of your sexuality or identity, because myself, I consider my sexuality and orientation and everything completely complex, that I couldn't just classify it in one statement.
yeah, well, like
For me, sorry, I want to actually start a YouTube channel to get some lost voices that I think really are needed, especially in the atheist community and on YouTube at large. There are some trans male streamers, but not nearly enough, and not nearly enough dealing with the topics that have come up recently and before in too. It's like there's this whole chasm. Yes, trans women streamers are great. Yes, but we really need more trans men voices.
yeah,
And that's kind of one of the things where I'm like, do I do this?
yeah,
I would
and
say yes, and I can't agree with that more. Trans men should have a bigger voice. They're just oftentimes they're ignored, and it's not good.
I think
Well, considering my first breakout into Twitter, I was actually figuring out if I should be open about being a trans man. it's definitely a more oppression against people who are female to male, where they I don't know how to explain it. It's just like we seem less valid as men to some people.
I actually have a friend who is trans male, and yeah, he talks about it quite often that he's sometimes ignored. He's erased from the community. They're left and forgotten, and it's definitely a massive problem.
It's yeah.
It's not intentional from our side.
No, there's basically I think trans misogyny is part of it. Like nobody cares about someone. Like nobody cares about a woman becoming a man. Um, but if a man becomes a woman, that's like a fetish and like deviant and just bad, and that shouldn't happen. But nobody cares about people going the other way.
Well, I kind of think that's true and not true. I think it's true that there's not so much of an outcry from the far right. Most of the outcry from the far right is focused on trans women, but at the same time, there's still those same denials. And
Hmm.
the more we speak out about it, if we don't speak about it in exactly the right way, we can still be looked at as female. So there's the addition of how do we actually vocalize this? Because this is a stereotype, and I do not believe in stereotypes, but sometimes women are stereotyped as being able to talk more about their feelings and what exactly is wrong. But doing so as a man, if you're trying to be stealth, especially talking about something that hurts or offends, can create a weird stigma.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the differences personally between men and women like that.
Well, at least how I was brought up, men don't complain. Women, it's unmanly to complain. You just take it.
I was never
Yeah,
brought
I've
up
pretty
like
much put
that.
up with a bunch of shit, especially since I've worked construction. I know this seems very odd to a lot of people with my frame and everything, but I've worked construction with male and females and transgenders all alongside each other. And the work environment is actually really harsh for women. Um, they end up bullied oftentimes on the job site, whereas um, those of us who identify as trans male have taken precautions so that we don't get it as bad. But the thing is if you get bullied and you can't accept it, then oftentimes you will have to leave that job site. So it's either take it or leave, basically.
That is kind of a thing that I've noticed. I just my parents, I guess, were very good parents. Just we were in the shit, but like my parents were pretty good. They never tried to force me into any sort of gender roles or anything like that. And I actually was very left to my own devices as a kid, which actually was very good for me. So I just kind of went with whatever. I was still closeted because of the hard times that we were going through. And I was kind of an evil little bastard, I'm telling you. Like if you caught me, I would have, when I was like 13 or 14, I would have bled black, not red, just because of the pure evil that I was. I changed in the intervening time. I was a very good person coming out of my teens, but yeah. So I just thought it would have been another thing to get me in trouble coming out at that point. But it would have worked out very well anyways. And I'm 34. That was like the mid 90s. I can relate with a lot of what Jenny said, except for I didn't have any exposure to trans people whatsoever. I live kind of in a large town. We're technically not a city because we have to be 100,000, and we were like 72, 60 something. We're almost 100,000 now, but technically we're not legally a city. But like it's a weird place because it's kind of we're right in the cottage country. We're the gateway to cottage country, basically, and we're full of retirees. But we also have two internationally well-known colleges. One college and one university. So we have a lot of young people too. And even the older people here are often very progressive, even way back then. But I did not know a thing about trans people until I didn't even know other trans people existed until I was like 16. So I had no research. Another interesting thing is that my mom is a nurse, and I had access to all of her textbooks and everything. But I never connected those dots until I was in my late teens, where like transition was actually a thing I could do. And I was still pretty ignorant on the subject when I went the first time. And then that really changed after the whole thing with the non-sec, and yeah, everything's going great now. I things are working out decently on that end, so I don't even know if I would change anything now. I would not have had a concept of being non-binary back in, like, I knew who I was. I just didn't have the puzzle pieces to put together to be able to communicate it to other people. I didn't know that there were other people like me. I didn't know anything, basically. So I don't know how much different my life would be if I even did transition back then.
Yeah, I think as more people are becoming open and out about how they feel personally, we're able to define it more. And it's really heavily used. I really don't know if would be correct because this is a personal opinion, but we do use definitions a lot to explain ourselves and to define who we are. But we don't always fit into a certain box or a certain classification.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I don't even like saying I identify as something or another, because identifying sounds like I'm actively doing it. Like, I don't identify as a bi-gender trans woman. I just am. I don't identify as being bisexual. I just am. Right? I mean, that's kind of the language that we have. And a favorite quote of mine from Babylon 5 is, "The avalanche has already begun. It's too late for the pebbles to vote." But I still just don't identify as being anything. I just am. And I just use these words to describe myself as best I can to other people.
I think that's the best we can do, is try to find these words to describe our feelings. Feelings are a hard thing to describe, because they're kind of abstract. So we have to find the best words we can in order to discuss them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Anyways,
I really hate to say bye, but I do have to go. I have lots of stuff I need to get done tonight.
Okay, then.
So I will see y'all on Twitter, and until next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Upsie. Really
Bye.
I had a
appreciate you
lot of
making
fun.
it.
yeah, take care. I was
You
going to
too.
write mine down as well, but I wanted to ask if are we going to be taking questions from the comments in YouTube?
That is actually a very good idea. If anyone in the comment section has any questions, go ahead and ask. I think almost
Oh.
everyone in there is trans, though.
I don't have the chat up, so if anybody's asking me questions, let me know.
Yep, I definitely will. I have my eye on it. Why is the sky blue?
Well,
Because
that's
refraction.
'cause of light. Yeah, light refraction.
Yeah.
At light refraction.
We
I
only
don't
have
see
like
anything.
1 minute anyway, so. Well then, I think I'm about to call it as well.
Okay. Yep, Scarlet wants ice cream, so
I mean, Shannon wants to do more of this anyway, either on her channel or here. So I think we'll be retouching this in different ways.
yeah, definitely. This is a very complex subject, and
hopefully next time will be a bit better organized, in that Shannon won't have to rush off anywhere. Or
yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a question from somebody with a Greek name. What's the difference between pansexual and bisexual?
I don't personally see one. I think it's just whatever label people are comfortable with using. And a lot of pansexual people describe their sexuality different. A lot of bisexual people describe their sexuality different. I describe my sexuality as just to make it fun and crude. I like dick and I like vag, and I don't care about the rest.
So, from what I have heard, now keep in mind, every bisexual person and pansexual are different, and labels are different, but I find pansexual much more inclusive than bisexual, because pansexual is kind of more, you care about hearts than rather than parts, which makes more sense. But bisexual, because sometimes people won't date trans people, which is really annoying.
It is.
So if you want to be more inclusive, I would lean towards pan, just because that has a connotation of being more open towards trans people. But some people identify as bisexual and don't care if you're trans or not.
Yeah, like I've been, like I've said, I've called myself bisexual for longer than pan has been in general use. And when I started calling myself bisexual, pan did not have anywhere. Pan just basically meant bisexual plus intersex people. That's the second meaning of it, after some person didn't think that bisexual sounded inclusive to intersex people, so dug pansexual out of Sigmund Freud of all people's grave, or coined it a second time. I actually don't know where this person got it from, but like I said, there are some people who would just say, like Jimmy, who would just say pansexual people are not limited to gender, blah blah blah, and wouldn't go with the hearts rather than parts. And I do care about people's personality, right? Like the fastest way to get into my bed is to be hot. The fastest way to get kicked right back out is to be a jerk.
Now, I had a very unique definition growing up about it. Bisexual to me was the attraction to two or more genders or sexes between people. Pansexual was, I don't give a fuck what your gender is, what you're thinking, I'm attracted to a person. That's kind of what I had growing up. It has changed and morphed over time, and I am definitely more understanding that bisexual is one or two or more people, and pansexual is just a way for you to actually describe it. People use different definitions too, so it's hard to pin down. So.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Almost like it's a language.
Yeah. Well, I was basically coerced into calling myself pan by people who overly care about the etymology of a word. But it soured the term for me, because I was basically being told I was a horrible person, and that I didn't accept non-binary people, or I wouldn't date a trans or non-binary person. I'm like, yes, I would. I'm both trans and non-binary, and I've called myself bisexual for 25 years, since I was 9. 24 years at that point. Go away. Right? And so I did for a brief time, but it didn't feel right because of some very vitriolic people who care more about, like I said, the etymology of a word as opposed to how it's used. Now, when I first understood bisexuality, I believed it to mean literally both sexes or both parts or whatever If you look back, that's what the word originally meant, because there was no concept of gender in roughly 1815 when that specific word was coined, and then the usage of the word evolved to include people who didn't necessarily fit in that without the language changing, and then people who think that everything should be, people who think that language matters and should be super inclusive decided, no, this isn't inclusive enough. We need a new word that is more inclusive, just because of the construction of the word, and instead of just continuing to say that, no, this word is all inclusive. So, like, no, I'm bisexual. That's the label I feel most comfortable using. Yes, I would date a trans or non-binary or intersex person, and the way I describe bisexuality, where I'm coming from, is inclusive of all of that. My long definition is for pansexual, or for bisexual, is that I'm attracted to people people with any combination of primary, secondary sex characteristics, be they mental or physical, in nature.
I use the words interchangeably. If somebody I'm talking to understands the difference between sexualities, I will use pansexual because it best describes my feelings. However, for an average layman person, I will just use bisexual because it's shorthand and they understand
that's pretty
far
much
better
the
than
way
pansexual.
I use them too. It depends who I'm talking to.
Also, I can't be gay or straight, so I have to be bisexual. But that's,
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat there, just from a different angle. just on a gender level, not a biology level. You're very welcome for answering. That's kind of a. It sounds simple, but it's kind of a complicated thing, because everyone will give you a different answer on what pansexual means, and everyone will give you a different answer on what bisexual means.
This whole conversation is complex. Anyways,
Yeah.
Any more questions before I head out?
Nah, at least not for me.
Well, I'm talking about from chat as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Doesn't look like it.
All right. Well, this was nice. We should definitely do this again.
Yep.
Absolutely. And we actually have a list of topics that we want to go over. We're going to work out what we're going to do next week. Actually, going to be an extremely busy week for me, because I'm working so much. So I want it to be something easy. Maybe we can even continue this one next week. I don't know. So we will keep in touch. Check out our Twitter, either Jenny's or mine. And I might actually make one for the show itself, just make that easy. To know what's going on with us. All of our information is down in the description box. All of our contact for those of us who want to be contacted, and our YouTube channels as well.
And I can be found anywhere, and I'm everywhere, even in your comment section.
Yeah. For me, I've got Twitter. I may or may not make a channel here in a little bit, but yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter.
But you're welcome to make regular appearances with us anyway, Matt.
Say that
Yep.
again.
You're welcome to make regular appearances with us anyway, Matt, if you want to.
Cool.
Get
I
your
would
voice
love
out.
that.
I think
Absolutely.
somewhere on that in the internet will understand that joke that I just made. It's an inside joke, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Okay.
hear the joke. Sorry. But yeah. Sounds like
Alright.
we're wrapping up then, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank you
night.
very much
Thanks
for
a
having
lot.
me.
You're very welcome. Thanks to all of our guests, including those who dropped out. And that's it for this one. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff, so that YouTube likes us more in the algorithm. Do lots of commenting. and so on and
Follow
so
us on
forth.
Twitter.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter, and give us
And I like
attention.
starting dumpster fires.
Oh yes, yeah. My Twitter is one third dumpster fire, 1/3 me being absolutely absurd and
My Twitter's
hilarious.
just pretty much retweets I like, and then maybe make an occasional comment.
Yeah, and 1/3 me trying to actually be like serious, but I don't come across as it. All right. So that's it for this one, and have a good one, eh?
Have a good
Yeah.
one, everybody.